Will Stewart from OnlineChessLessons.net, and I'm going to be continuing with part 4 of the Stonewall Attack Beginner Opening Series. And this is, the Stonewall. You can play with white or black, and this is a fantastic example. So we've got Herman Steiner with the white pieces against none other than former world champion Mikhail Botvinnik playing the Stonewall as black. This is Groningen, 1946. So opening up, this opening move order, I was kind of skeptical showing this game for beginners because the opening move order was a little bit off. Botvinnik showing the bishop b4 check. But, in a couple of moves, we're going to see with d5 and c6, this is the classical Stonewall structure. And so white has opted to fianchetto the bishop, and I don't believe I covered this so much in the earlier section of the series. So I wanted to show a different plan here involving a way to attack. There's also, you can try to play in the center, you can try to play b6, but in this game, queen e8, and this is an extremely important idea, trying to swing the queen out. Because if we look at this position with the fianchetto, playing knight e4, and trying to lift the rook, and bringing the rook here, maybe g5, we'll throw it in there. It's just simply not effective to lift the rook and attack this fianchetto structure. White's defenses are simply too solid and too well organized around his king here. So instead, queen e8, and you got to bring in some heavy artillery. You're probably going to have to launch the pawns, and black is going to have to do something a little bit extra to crack down that fianchetto structure on the white king side. So with rook e1, white is he's putting all his hands in one basket or whatever here. He's trying to, at all costs, open the center. And so his plan with knight d2, if he's allowed to carry this out and play f3 and e4, he's going to break open the center, and he's obviously his rooks, every single one of his pieces is ideally placed for that thematic break with f3 and e4. So black's got to he's got to stop that at all costs. So g5, this maybe Mr. Steiner underestimated this move a little bit, because with g5, now the bishop is kind of stuck in no man's land. If it goes to e3, it looks like white is going to be losing very quickly after knight g4. Got to defend against the mate. And in this position, simply bishop d6, and there's really no way to defend this pawn on g3. If king h2, simply queen h4. You got to pile up on pinned pieces or pawns. And if rook f3, simply g4. And I think it's pretty easy to see here that white is going to be losing significant material, and black is going to maintain the initiative. So bishop e3, process of elimination, that's not going to work. So here, white plays bishop c7. And I've showed this game to a couple of my students, and they always ask me, this is the weirdest move. Why did white play this? Well, it's very simple. The bishop couldn't go to e3, so what are the other choices in this position? e5 and c7. So why go to e5 first? So why not go to bishop c7, where it's kind of just a thorn in black's side here? And black, really wants to chase it down. So with knight e8, white has enticed black to kind of retreat and almost not necessarily waste a move, but go backwards a move, and now bring in the bishop to e5. So these subtle things, they can add up. So here Botvinnik goes for the exchange. And this was a critical situation because white, again, these rooks are ready to jam in the center. Every white piece just about is pointing towards e4. It's pretty crazy. Every single piece wants to play e4. And it looks like it's not really going to happen right now, this whole plan. And black's got to be careful, because if he plays a move like knight g7, if he waits, f4, and now this position is going to be very closed. It's going to be very difficult for black to create, a good attack on the king side, because it's just closed. The closed nature of the king side is very difficult to break through. So instead, Botvinnik, this guy knows a thing or two, and he plays f4. So now he's opening up the f5 square for his pieces, and more importantly, he's prevented white from playing f4 himself. So white in this game, he takes the pawn, and this is a really big mistake because, first of all, if you want to take that pawn on f4, you might as well wait until you actually need to do it, because if you do it right away, black now is going to be able to work with that open g file and knows that it's already open. So first, the first point there is you never want to make this exchange until you absolutely have to. And the second point is, just look, white has given away his own cover, his own pawn cover of his king. And looking at this position, white in this position, okay, knight f3, I think that was a good move. If he plays e3 now, simply f3, and black is going to benefit greatly from that exchange on f3. There's no doubt about it. So knight f3 makes a lot of sense. King h8. Here, okay, king h1, it definitely makes sense. Get the king off that open g file. And now after knight g7, I think it was imperative that white defend actively, because when you defend passively, as we're going to see in this game, it's never pretty, because the other side here, black, is going to be able to pretty much do whatever they want, maneuver however they want, and build up the pressure until they decisively break through. So that's why you see a lot of top players, they will prefer to sacrifice to obtain better practical chances, rather than defend passively. Kasparov, great example. So here I think white, he's got to play e3. He's got to play e3. There's no doubt about it. So pawn takes, rook takes, this doesn't work. Bishop c5, there's no way to defend this rook. Rook d3, just taking here. And this isn't going to work well for white. But with pawn takes, black has got good chances, or white, I should say, of opening up the position. He's got these rooks here. Now they can achieve some type of activity. And I would say black maybe has a small edge, mainly due to the two bishops advantage, and that his queen is better placed to attack on the king side. But white's got chances. He's going to mix it up actively and make black really earn it. In the game, Steiner, he played queen c1, and this is, it's way too passive. Trying to line up on the f4 pawn, I was very unimpressed with this move. So now bishop d7, so black, as you so often see in the Stonewall, black is trying to build up this kingside attack as much as possible, close down the other side's play in the center, and if he can't get the decisive attack rolling soon enough, then he's going to start worrying about developing these queenside pieces and getting them into the attack. So with the bishop d7, Botvinnik, he can also reroute the bishop to g6, where it's going to be on this monster diagonal as well. So it's got a future. So now a3, and again, passive defense. Look at these rooks. The rooks are just hanging out behind the pawns. They're stumbling over their own pieces. So you got to open up the position, give your pieces some life there. So now with rook f7, this is an extremely instructive rook maneuver. So he lifts one rook. Also, this is deceptive because you're not giving away your whole plan until you absolutely have to. So with rook f7, making room to sweep the other rook over and double him up on the g file. So b4, okay, white's counterplaying the queen side is obviously going way too slow. He just really couldn't bring himself to play e3. So now rook g8. And we're starting to see Botvinnik is putting together that perfect coordination for his attack, which is a very bad sign for white. So white, okay, rook g1, better late than never, has got a challenge for the g file. And now it's simply knight f5. So this whole queen c1 idea was pretty ridiculous because the pawn on f4 doesn't really do anything, and taking it, you're going to give black an extra tempo. So he tries knight d1 first. He's trying to reroute the pieces to the king side. But these pawns are just in the way of the defending pieces. So now rook g7. So black, almost every single piece participating in the attacks. The bishops, they're kind of holding it down on the defense, but they could hop in as well. So when queen takes f4, and we're going to see this later, that pawn on f4 was actually helping white out, defend a little bit. Now it opens up black's attack even more. So rook g4 makes a lot of sense. Now knight h4. So when you talk about focal points, you want to pile up every single piece you can onto one square. Not an area, not a region, one single square. And that's exactly what Botvinnik is doing right now. He's got 3 pieces, both rooks and the knight, pointing straight at the bishop on g2. His queen's also in the vicinity, looking at h2, maybe if he wants to change the focal point, making it more difficult for white to defend. But first, you want to tie up every piece, every defending piece, on that one focal point square. So now with knight takes f3, if bishop takes f3, this would fail miserably to queen takes h2, pretty easy queen sack, and that's going to be mate. So no dice there for Mr. Herman. So now with pawn takes f3, the queen sack doesn't quite work. White could defend with bishop h3, but just simple, logical, rook h4, threatening mate in 1. And so he tries knight f1, and after bishop g5, as I was talking earlier, the pawn on f4 was kind of closing black's bishop out of the game a little bit. Bishop g5, Herman Steiner resigned with the white pieces. He's got no defense against bishop f4 with the next move. Queen c3, for example, just bishop f4, and there's no way you can see white change the focal point. First, he established the focal point on g2 with the pressure on the g file. Now he's changed his focal point in response to white's defense. Now he's got everything pointed at h2. So Botvinnik just making it look too easy, this attacking formation on the black side of the Stonewall, involving the queen to e8 to h5 maneuver. This is Will Stewart from onlinechesslessons.net, and thanks for tuning in.